Hello. How y'all doing today? Thank you for being here with me today. Of all the places that you can be, I'm glad that you are here. My name is Barb. Welcome to my true crime channel. Today, we're going to be discussing Eric Smith. He was the 13-year-old boy who killed a 4-year-old. This was back in the 90s, so it was quite a while ago. And if you're not familiar with the story, you might be a little upset at the end of the story, if you're anything like me. But anyway, on the morning of August 2nd, 1993, it was the first time Doreen Roby ever let 4-year-old Derek go anywhere alone. Now, I know what you're going to say. 4 years old, going somewhere alone. Number one, this was back in the 90s. Things were a little different than they are now. But anyway, it was just down the block, and it was on the same side of the road, so he wasn't going very far at all. He gave his mom a kiss. She said, "I love you," and he said, "I love you, Mom." And little Derek Roby went hopping down the sidewalk to his summer camp at the park. What he or his mother didn't know was that 13-year-old Eric Smith, a troubled neighborhood boy, was also on his way to the park. And Eric was a troubled kid. Troubled kid. He had a history of killing animals. But his intentions on going to the park were to annoy and bully the summer campers. The camp leader eventually made Eric leave, and when he did, that's when he came upon little Derek. Eric asked Derek if he was on his way to summer camp, and he said yes. And Eric told him, he said, "Hey, I know a shortcut. Follow me." And Derek agreed. Eric took him into the woods, and what he did was absolutely horrifying. Eric strangled little Derek until he passed out, at which point he started punching him and throwing a rock at his little body several times. And he then inserted a stick into his private area. Eric left, but he returned 5 minutes later just to ensure that the boy was dead. And then he went home like nothing happened. It was later that Doreen would find out that her son never made it to camp and reported him missing. Now, with a killer at large, the community feared for their children. They couldn't imagine anyone ever wanting to kill the popular little t-ball player they called the unofficial mayor of Savona, the happy kid who would sit at the corner greeting people. They had assumed the killer was a stranger from out of town. And in the days that followed, a family friend, Marlene Heskell, of Eric Smith's family, she grew concerned about Eric's behavior. She said on the night of the murder, Eric asked her what would happen if it turned out to be a kid who was the killer. And she said, "I think they seriously need some psychiatric help." And he just said, "Oh, okay," and walked away. She knew Eric went to the same park near the crime scene, and she said that's when everything clicked, and she thought that maybe he knew something, or that maybe he even seen something. So she called Eric's mother, and they took him to the police command post to speak with investigators. The one investigator said Eric seemed to enjoy speaking about the murder. Totally enjoyed it and didn't want the conversation to end. But Eric denied seeing Derek at first, but later confessed to his mother what he had done. Eric's grandfather was present for that conversation, and he recalled Eric saying, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. I killed that little boy." In August of 1994, Eric, who was 14 years old at this point, was tried as an adult, and he was sentenced to 9 years to life in prison in November of 1994. He was the youngest murder defendant tried as an adult in New York City, or New York State, rather. He was held in a juvenile detention center and transferred to a prison for adults after he turned 21 years old. After his arrest, it was found out that Eric had intermittent explosive disorder, depression, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Almost 9 years after his crime, he had his first parole hearing, which was denied. He was denied parole 10 times between June of 2002 and January of 2020. It was a reoccurring nightmare for little Derek Roby's family. Doreen once said, "It upsets me, the fact that we have to beg to keep this killer behind bars. They could decide one day that, well, now he's done his time, and we're going to let him go. And it scares the hell out of me." In his 2004 parole board hearing, Eric admitted to the board that he got a good feeling from strangling Derek at that time, because instead of me being hurt, I was the one hurting somebody else. He also admitted if he hadn't been charged back in 1993, that he probably would have killed again. And in 2009, he did an interview where he said he hoped to become a counselor so he could help other kids who were bullied like he was. He said, "My anger wasn't directed at Derek at all. It was directed at all the other guys that used to pick on me. And when I was torturing and killing Derek, that's what I saw in my head." He understood why Derek's family didn't want him released. He said, "I did kill Derek, and for that I am sorry. If I could switch places with him and take the grave for him to live, I'd do it in a second." He said after years of therapy, he was a changed man. He said, "You can label me a monster, a cold-blooded killer, a demon child, Satan incarnate. Doesn't mean that's who I am." He also believed he would be released someday, saying, "I want to get married, and I want to raise a family, hold down a job, pursue the American dream." And dreaming he did. That is until October of 2021. Until at 41 years of age, he went before the parole board for the 11th time. During this parole hearing, Eric revealed his future plans and said he even had a fiancée. He said she had written to him with questions about the juvenile justice system, and since she was studying to be a lawyer, they started to get to know each other, and eventually they fell in love. He said he felt God was calling on him to do ministry. While incarcerated, he was working on getting his college degree in crusade evangelism, and he was also looking forward to working. "If you were to give me a chance, I would not only prove that I am not a threat, that I would also definitely be an asset to society." And the board decided to give Eric Smith that chance. But after news broke that he would be released in November of 2021, the Savona community held a peaceful protest to make it clear that they didn't want Eric back there. Doreen, Derek's mom, said, "I wasn't so much worried about us as I was everybody else. I just knew where a lot of people in town stood." And Eric's release was delayed for months until he secured approved housing. And in February, after serving 28 years, 42-year-old Eric was released. And he is now a free man living in Queens, New York. And Doreen's last comment is, "I don't let him take space in my head. I do not focus on where he is or what he's doing, because I don't care, as long as he's not near friends and family." So that was today's story. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. What are your thoughts on him being released? Do you think he could have been, what's the word I'm looking for, healed, fixed, cured? Being a 13-year-old child, I guess, that did the crime, and being released at 40 years old, should he have stayed in prison? Or do you think it was time for him to be released? Please put your thoughts down below. I'll see you guys next time.